From the fight getting dropped from UFC 290 to Dana White asking fans if they've seen his GOAT around, this is all about the Jon Jones vs. Stipe Miocic fight. The match has been dropped from International Fight Week. I know it's disappointing, guys, but the promised super fight between the heavyweights isn't happening on the promised night. The card for UFC 90 has already been announced, and it's going to have Brandon Moreno and Alexandre Pantoja headlining it, with Robert Whittaker and Dricus du Plessis featuring as the co-main event. The heavyweight title fight has been pushed further down the year, and according to ESPN's Marc Raimondi, it's much more likely to take place in the fall. Dana also recently talked about the fight. He didn't give any specifics as to the date, but he promised that the fight is going to be finalized soon, and it's going to take place in Madison Square Garden. Johnny Bones has only just secured the heavyweight crown, but he still has a long way to go before he can truly establish himself in the new division. You all know how good he was as a light heavyweight before his 3-year hiatus. Jones was supposed to fight Francis Ngannou for his return to the UFC, but Predators falling out with a promotion meant that Cyril Gane had to step in. If Jon had defeated the former champ, then the title would have held more meaning for him. Sadly, that didn't happen. So now he must take on the heavyweight OG. Miocic is the best fighter to have fought in the division in the history of the UFC, and that's saying something. With 3 consecutive title defenses as a heavyweight, he has set a record that Jon wants to break. That's easier said than done, because the silencer has been a tough matchup against all of his opponents. But Jon is probably the best equipped to deal with him. Stipe has had a long career in the UFC, but the truth is that now he's getting too old. His last fight was back in 2021 when he lost his throne to Ngannou. People have already been questioning his ability to even put up a fight in the octagon. But there aren't many names left in the division who pose any sort of a threat to a fighter as accomplished as Jon. The GOAT is probably aware of this. Maybe that's why he's thinking of retiring. I know it sounds disappointing, but that's what Jones said. He took to Twitter and said that it'll be cool to spend his retirement fight dominating the greatest heavyweight ever. A fan responded by telling him that they're not ready for his retirement yet, to which Jon said, "Okay, my bad, I'll keep fighting." At this point, it's impossible to say what he's thinking. The heavyweight division isn't the most lucrative one at the moment. There are just not enough quality fighters left, so you can't blame Johnny Boy for thinking of hanging up his gloves. He wants to fight the best so he can stay on top. But if there's no one left to challenge him, then what's the point? The thing is that Jones previously revealed that he had signed an 8-fight deal with the UFC. So how can he get out with only 2 fights is beyond me. Let's just hope he was only teasing the fans. But the problem is that even Henry Cejudo thinks this is it for Jon. He revealed on his podcast that the match hasn't been announced officially yet because of Bones. As per Triple C, the GOAT is asking for a little more cash to take the fight because it's likely going to be his last, and he wants to leave with a big fat paycheck. Cejudo knows what he's talking about because he probably has a lot of insight into Jon. You see, the former double champ actually coached the GOAT before his fight against Gane. It's not completely unreasonable of Jones to ask for this. He's still a pretty big draw and has made some serious money for the promotion in the past. Dana's adamant that there's absolutely no drama surrounding Jones and Miocic, and that he's confident that they're going to finalize things pretty soon. You'd expect it to be announced by now because the 2 men clearly agreed to fight right after Jon won the title. But sometimes these things take time. So for now, all we can do is wait and see what happens. On the other hand, Daniel Cormier thinks there's another reason for the delay, and that's because Stipe is being greedy. DC is of the opinion that Stipe has similar motivations as Jon for accepting the fight. The 40-year-old is at the end of his career, so he too expects to be paid well to fight a savage such as Jones. Surprisingly, Cormier came to the defense of his old rival on this one, saying that Jon would always be ready for a fight. No matter the time or place, Mr. Bones will show up. So the delay is being caused by Miocic because he'd just like some extra green for his retirement fund. DC admitted that these are only rumors and should be taken with a grain of salt. But I can't help but think that if a guy like Cormier comes forward and shares something like that, then there's bound to be a shred of truth to it. At the end of the day, all this drama is nothing but speculation, and the UFC boss isn't exactly putting it out. Instead, he's just fanning the flames more than anything. You see, last month, Dana insinuated that they can't set up the fight on International Fight Week because of Stipe, as he needed some more time to prepare and sort out his personal situation. But recently, he took a complete U-turn and threw his GOAT under the bus. The promotion's president revealed that Jones is being difficult to deal with during an interview on the Pat McAfee show. This didn't sit too well with Stipe, as he called Dana out for putting down both his fighters. He said that only last month White was saying that he was the one running away from the fight, and now it's John who's doing that. I don't know if Miocic got hit in the head one too many times or what, because Dana actually was defending the former champ when John and his fans were picking on him. He said that Stipe has never run from a fight in his life, and saying something like that makes no sense at all. The silencer actually needs to be a little more careful with what he says, or risk losing the boss's support too, because his comment didn't sit too well with John or his fans either. Bones fired back at Miocic for the tweet against Dana. He told the 40-year-old that he has convinced himself that Jones was running from him, just because he was taking a break from social media for a couple of weeks. The fans also swarmed in John's favor as they went on to bash Stipe on Twitter. Lately, he's been on the receiving end of a lot of things like that. He posted one of his training video clips on his Instagram account, and it was met with some really uncalled-for criticism. Fans were reminding Stipe that he can train as hard as he wants, but John is going to submit him in the opening rounds. A few also talked about how the silencer is going to get murdered legally by Mr. Bones. A large majority of the people were also curious as to why Stipe is dodging the champ, and why he isn't accepting the fight already. Social media mob mentality just gets out of hand at times. But can you really blame them? I mean, even as a young fighter, Miocic wasn't ever that flashy. His record might be impressive, but his fighting style never was. He may have been a wrestler in school, but it's doubtful he's ever going to be at the level of the GOAT. Stylistically, Stipe brings nothing new for John to deal with. He's seen it all and he has dominated it all. So chances are the match is going to be pretty one-sided anyway, and John is going to do whatever he wants to the former heavyweight champ. The only way Miocic stands any chance is if he can outpace the GOAT, or catch him by surprise with a strike. Even then, there's no guarantee that it'll work. John has been in business for a very long time, and he has fought all sorts of guys. Maybe that's why Johnny Bones is so silent. Well, I mean relatively. He's still talking because he has to sell the fight after all, but he isn't as vocal as he usually is. That might also have something to do with the respect John has for Miocic. He may want to fight the silencer to cement himself as a titan of the heavyweight, but he can't deny how dominant Stipe was in the past. In fact, John actually disappeared for a few weeks, which even kind of caused Dana to panic a little. The UFC boss said that John came, saw, conquered, and then disappeared without a trace for some days. That obviously made it difficult for him to book the fight for International Fight Week. Maybe that's why the fight was delayed. Let's just hope now that the card is announced soon enough. From Dana White asking fans if they've seen his GOAT, to the fight getting dropped from UFC 290, this is all about the Jon Jones vs. Stipe Miocic fight.